Welcome back. All right, top 10 list today, and it is very different in that I already know the title. These are predictable predictions. I think they're predictable predictions. But doing the video today, I'm wearing my Cincinnati Cyclones jersey for this one. Been trying to wear some different jerseys lately. The people are going to be like, I didn't know he had that. That's kind of the idea. But top 10 list for today is the predictable predictions for this summer. I'm just focusing mostly on this summer. A couple of these are going to roll over into next season, the regular season, but predictions for this summer. So the first one is, I think, the easiest. We have a salary cap that's going up by a lot, right? We have teams that are looking to make a splash, looking to turn things around. We're going to see overpayments. We are going to see contracts on July the 1st that we look at and say, he got how much? So what we're going to see, I think what we're going to see is teams bidding each other up. And we're going to see guys getting contracts that'll have both term and money that we look at and say it's crazy. We've seen this before in the National Hockey League. Wasn't it 2016 that we had a bunch of contracts that were questionable that summer? So I think we're going to see that again. And then, of course, there's going to be all of the discussions of, so how many of these are going to get bought out? That'll be the conversation too. But we're going to see overpayments. But that leads me into point number 2. We're going to see steals. One thing that I always find fascinating with the free agent market is that all these guys go for big money, and then you have the guys who are left over. And they may end up signing with a team that doesn't have a ton of cap space left, so they end up getting less money, but they go there because they want to win. We're going to see a lot of steals, I think, as well. A lot might be overstating it, but we're going to see steals. We're going to see players who get signed. Look at the ones who get signed, not July the 1st, but the ones who get signed like July 5th through July 10th, maybe get signed in August. Players who teams might not be as after because maybe they're seen as a little slower, a little bit older, but in a bottom 6 role, in a supportive role, they end up being key. Right now with Florida and Edmonton in the final, one thing that's been talked about with both teams through their runs to get to this final is how their depth punished the other teams, whether it's via scoring, hitting, wearing the other team down. Those guys are often bargains in the free agent market, and we look back and we go, how did that guy end up being that cheap? And it's because they weren't one of the big names on July the 1st, and teams spend right up to the cap. Which brings me to point number 3. We're going to see fewer teams spend to the max. As I've mentioned in a recent video, I always find it odd that everybody just spends to the maximum. That's the most you can spend. And I don't think it's a sign that a team won't be as good when they don't spend to the max. I think it's a smart move. There are times where I will see a team has like $3.5 million in cap space left, and I'm thinking, hey, that could be good. And then, a few days later you see, oh, this guy signed for $2.75 million. Isn't it smart? They were able to get that cap hit in there. And me, personally being a nerd, I think, wouldn't it have been better to keep that $3.5 million in cap space? Not because that other player isn't good, but because then they have the ability to work a trade that maybe their rivals don't once you get into the regular season. So this spend, I think is going to slow down at the salary cap going up as high as it does. And I think every summer we'll see fewer and fewer teams that are spending the max, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. We're now conditioned that spending the most money is great. But if you look at the salary cap situation teams have been in over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, there are teams that are spending to the cap every year that are getting nowhere near the return they should be for having spent so much money on their talent. And then there's teams who haven't spent quite to the cap that are getting excellent returns. So, yeah, smart management sometimes involves not spending all the money right away. And this will lead to number 4 on the list, which is I think trades will be more frequent. So because teams wouldn't be right up against the cap, trades should be more frequent. There should be more ability to say when you get into the weeds of it and you're looking at your lineup, say, geez, we have a good forward group, but we need help on our defense. And you ring up another GM and go, hey, we need some help on the blue line. And the GM goes, hey, I was going to call you because we need help up front. And then you work what we call a hockey trade, where teams are helping each other out and they're giving each other what they need. I know, it's bizarre. And I do feel like this will make the NHL feel more like the NHL used to. It won't just be me standing in front of the whiteboard talking about the salary cap situation all the time and teams not having room. It'll be me talking about trades. And maybe it's wishful thinking on my behalf. Sure. But I think it's not about being cheap. It's about spending your money in a smart manner and not just saying, well, we have, $2 million left in cap space. We better spend that now. Why? You don't have to. You don't have to spend it. If you believe in the team you have on the ice, you don't necessarily have to spend that money. And then speaking of money, I think the McDavid extension is coming this summer. And I think for the Edmonton Oilers, they have to make it. They have to do it. They have to sit down with McDavid, figure out a dollar amount, and obviously the term, they're going to want a max term. McDavid leaving the Oilers would be disastrous, so I think they sit down this summer and we see McDavid become the number one highest paid player in the National Hockey League. And I don't think there will be a lot of debate about that, but I think that the sooner they get this done, the better. And I mean like July 1st. July 1st, they come out and say, all right, so McDavid signed an 8-year extension worth, $11 billion, or Texas with a dollar sign. And McDavid's, he's going to get paid, and I think that extension happens this summer. Which brings me to the next one, and I did intentionally put these in order. Isn't that weird how I did a top 10 where I felt like these all chronologically work together? So these are kind of all over the place, which can be fun too, but in this case, I'm like, yeah, chronologically. So, Bedard. I think Chicago's going to pay Bedard. I think he's going to sign an extension. Towards the end of the season, Chicago was better, and you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. This team is going to get better next year as well. Not a lot better, and we'll talk about that in the next number on the board, but they're going to get better. And the Chicago Blackhawks, well, they're probably still a lottery team next year. They're going to get better, and the first thing you do is you sit down with Connor Bedard, who they believe is the guy who's going to lead them. And while Bedard's numbers haven't been elite, he's a very good puck handler. I think he's underrated as a player. I think that because people are looking for McDavid-type totals from him offensively, they miss all the other things he does in the game. He's just a very good all-around player, and I think the Chicago Blackhawks will pay him not necessarily just whatever he wants, but I think it's going to be close to that. I think he's going to make some serious cash. Which brings me to number 7. Teams are definitely going to tank for McKenna, and I put, of course, here because that to me is obvious. But we'll see. And part of this could very well be those teams that don't spend right to the salary cap. Part of it may very well be, look, we're not in this to, make the playoffs this coming season because we want Gavin McKenna. Gavin McKenna is going to be one of those players that we see teams tank for. Not necessarily on a McDavid level of 2015, where we saw Buffalo and Edmonton doing so. Buffalo via trades to make sure they stayed as bad as possible, and Edmonton just doing Edmonton things at the time. But I do think we're going to see teams tank for McKenna, and that's going to cause maybe a little bit less spending. If you're trying to make sure you get that number 1 draft pick, or your best chance to get that number 1 draft pick, maybe you don't try to improve the roster as much. And then the other thing that does is, so going back to teams not spending to the max, if you're a GM of a team that you feel like you're going to go for Gavin McKenna, well, what's a good way to make sure that you're in a good spot to get McKenna? Add draft picks. And make it so that you're in a really good spot. And so you can add draft picks along with by weaponizing your cap space. And I think we're going to see some GMs do that. You're not going to get a team that's in a lottery position to trade you their draft pick, but we may see other picks get moved as well, as teams that are at the cap are trying to get some flexibility to go out and get other players. Vegas has always been aggressive that way. Tampa's been willing to do whatever that way as well. So if you don't spend to the cap, your phone may ring pretty darn quickly, and it might work out really well. You might put yourself in a good position to get McKenna, get more draft capital as well, and maybe pick up a young player or two on top of that. Number 8, not necessarily attached to number 7, so that breaks the whole attachment between these things. I think we'll get a CBA extension. I'm such an optimist, aren't I? I've actually seen posts of we're going to get a lockout. Why? See, I heard that too back in 2020 when they extended the CBA, and the last time they added a couple of years onto it as well. I heard, it's going to be a lockout. Why? Like, the NHLPA right now is happy. The NHLPA head gets along well with Gary Bettman and vice versa. So why would we get one? The owners are happy with the money they're making. The players are happy with the money they're making. Yes, there are some owners that wish that things were a little more equal in terms of spending power and all of that. But I think I think we're going to get an extension, and I think we'll get it early in the summer. Would not be surprised, honestly. They didn't announce it during the Stanley Cup final. Maybe they announced it at the draft. Maybe they announced it at the draft or right before the draft. We're going to. I think we're going to get that CBA extension. I think it'll be early in the summer. And 9, this seems to be kind of obvious, but I think Vegas will be aggressive this summer. Vegas does not like to be out early in the playoffs, and first, second round is not acceptable. So I think with Vegas, and I said during the season, I'll throw it out there again here, they didn't really scare me this year as much as they did in previous seasons. And I think Vegas is going to do their best to go out and spend some money. And that's going to involve trading some contracts. They've never been scared of doing that. That's never been a problem. They traded out Pacioretty. They traded out Marc-Andre Fleury. And it was never about any return for them. It was about making that cap space so they could get the other players they wanted. So I think Vegas is going to do that again. And I think we'll see them rejuvenated, and then fans will be really angry if they're good next season. So I think they're probably going to be really good next season. This last one here, I think Ovechkin does make the announcement this summer. I think the announcement will be made that this will be Ovechkin's final season. My guess is the Capitals and Fanatics will do this big spend on PR for all of this, and we'll have a big retirement tour for Ovechkin. I think we'll get something that's much bigger than what we had for Marc-Andre Fleury this season, and I kind of thought about throwing Malkin's name on the board too, because Malkin's contract, I believe, is up this season as well, and maybe this ends up being Malkin's final year, but obviously Ovechkin, a bigger name than Malkin, and so, yeah, I think this probably does end up being Ovechkin's final season. So I think these are just predictions that work. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Your prediction for this summer. And so that's why I'm saying the announcement for Ovechkin will be this summer, that it will be his final season. They'll have the big old PR, probably some great graphics splashed on there. They'll probably have some kind of patch on the jerseys for the Caps of, last go around, grand hurrah, or however you want to look at it, and we'll get the big retirement tour for Ovechkin as the number one goal scorer in the history of the National Hockey League. But let me know your thoughts, your predictions. What do you think happens this summer in around the National Hockey League? What do we see? And you guys can even get a little specific with, I think Marner's going to, and just insert name of city here, and then on July the 1st, you can come back to that comment and go, see, I knew. I was right, and you look great. And if you're wrong, you just come back to this video, and then you just delete the comment and go, I never said that. I don't know what you guys are talking about. So there you go. Of course, once I've done it in a video, I can't really do that unless I delete the video. And even then, it's a video. It's on the internet. It is eternal, which sometimes people uploading videos forget, but it can be eternal. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.